Hello, curling fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Broom Brothers, the official podcast of the curling group and the Grand Slam of Curling. John Cullen with you on a Monday morning of what has been a very busy few weeks in the world of curling. And of course, as always, I am joined by my beautiful friend, my partner in crime, Broom Brother number one, Robbie Doherty.
John, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Coast to coast, just after lunch here. I'm fresh as a daisy, ready to chat. And you're right, it has been busy.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. Obviously, we were in Nisku, the two world number ones back on top. Rachel Homan, Bruce Mouat winning. The PanContinentals just wrapped up in Minnesota, but perhaps for the Canadian curling fans and where we are going to start this week, the biggest event on the curling calendar in the last little while, the Canadian curling pre-trials out in sort of your neck of the woods, Robbie, Wolfville, Nova Scotia, saw Jordon McDonald win for the men. He will be off to the pre-trials also in Nova Scotia, in Halifax, coming up in a couple weeks. Selena Sturmay wins for the women. I'll let you decide where to start, how you want to tackle talking about this, but the pre-trials in the books.
Yeah, it was a great event. I actually got to watch quite a bit of it. One of the perks of having a 4-month-old at home is you are parked on the couch for most of the day when you're not traveling the country or actually across the border for curling coming up. But it was great. A lot of good teams, a lot of close games. I'll be honest, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I did not make this public, but they were my two picks to win.
Okay. I mean, you could say anything. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. On the women's side, there's a PEI connection to Team McMillan, the silver medalist.
Lauren Lenentine.
Yeah. Lenentine's from Cornwall, just up the road. Anyway, so, that's the team that I've kind of been watching coming up and just following. Is if there's one thing PEI or Prince Edward Islanders love, it's our own. So we follow them. And it was it was fun to watch. I like the best of 3 format. That was pretty fun. Created some excitement. The thing about Sturmay, which I always said, is I find they're just a very consistent team up the lineup. They're not flashy. They don't take unnecessary risks. They're just a really solid, smart curling team who manages rocks well. They manage the scoreboard well, and they're mentally tough. Like we saw Sturmay miss that draw to give up that big steal. I think it was in game 2.
In game 2, yeah, gave up the steal of 5.
And she rebounded and went out and got the job done in game 3. So not surprised. What a program they have at the University of Alberta. If you look at the alumni web page on that website, if it exists, there's some pretty big names, pretty impressive names who've come through that program. And they really just do a good job of not just playing well all the time, but especially in the big games. So congratulations to Team Sturmay. They were fun to watch. But I think for me, the thing that fires me up is Team McDonald. How we talked about on the last show, John, we the U25 event coming in to the Nisku Slam, the co-op tour challenge that just happened. And I talked about how cool it is for young players, what an opportunity it would be to play in that final game in the Grand Slam setting in the arena. But Team McDonald, they're in that category. Like literally, they're so young. They've got so much potential. They're already so good. To do this well, to perform at that skill level, under that pressure, under those circumstances, to book a ticket into the trials at their age, that's such a huge, huge, huge thing for that team, a huge accomplishment. It's just going to make them better. I've been to the Canadian trials in Halifax before. It's a rocking atmosphere, and that is an understatement. Trust me, it's going to be wild in there. It's going to be fun to watch. No matter what happens for them in Halifax, they're going to come out a much better curling team. And props to Jacques Gauthier. Jacques, he got relieved of his duties with Team Kui a couple of years ago. He was patient, kind of looked around, figured out what he wanted to do, found a great spot where he fits in nice, and it's certainly paying off for him.
Yeah, definitely. We found out yesterday Jordon will be the youngest skip to ever play in a trials, which is a great accomplishment for him. It kind of reminds me of Matt Dunstone and his first trials. If you remember, he was playing with Steve Laycock and had kind of started out as the second on that team, and then eventually they figured out that he was going to be best throwing last, and so his first trials was him throwing last. And I think he would have been maybe around the same age Jordon is now, maybe slightly older. This is going back a couple trials now, but it kind of has that same feel where you sort of know, we've obviously known of Jordon McDonald's name. He made his way into a tier 1 slam last year. He's going to be in Tahoe as well. And so he'll be in his second tier 1 slam coming up next week. And it's just, I think it's a great opportunity for them. Like you said, it's just, for them, it's going to be about experience at this point. I don't think anyone's going to have any designs that McDonald's going to win the trials. A lot of great teams on the men's side in Canada right now, but just getting that valuable experience at such a young age, I think will be really good for them. I also think that, as you said, it's not just Jacques, but the whole team, like they kind of took a risk. I mean, things were going very well for them with Dallas Burgess. They were making great runs at Manitoba Provincials, found their way into a tier 1 slam last year, made some good runs at the Canadian Juniors. I don't think anyone was thinking they needed to make a change, but they saw a really good free agent sitting on the sidelines. They saw an opportunity to maybe improve their team. The start of the year wasn't like incredible for them. Nope. It's not like they picked up Jacques and all of a sudden they were winning every game. It hasn't been an amazing start, but it was starting to come together just kind of before the pre-trials. And then you saw them kind of put it all together at the pre-trials, beating Calvert in the final there, and all Winnipeg battle in that final. But I think it's going to be great for them.
And also to add to that, not just to beat Calvert, and you said it was all coming together at the right time, but how about that win over Howard? Before Scott threw that last one, I'm not trying to pick on Scott here, but I don't think if you had asked anyone on Team McDonald at that point what they thought their chances are of winning, even getting to the finals, it's pretty low. Lady Luck was on their side. They got some rock luck, if you will, spun up the right way after the jam. They were the one in the house. Boom. They got themselves into that best of 3, had the ability to reset, and they looked so strong right through it. Calvert's team played well throughout the week. They were very, very consistent. I actually think I'm not sure if it was you I texted, maybe not, but I actually, when that Howard McDonald game was on, I was actually watching Howard versus Calvert. That was like from last night, and I thought it was live. My tech skills, John. Anyway, that's what we're dealing with.
For sure.
But back to it. The other thing too is what you talked about, the 4 players. That kind of jumped into my mind even before you said that, because Matt, to compare them to Dunstone, I agree. It's very close, high level players at a very young age. The only difference to me, and this is just my personal opinion, is Matt had sort of a different path in his trajectory. We saw Matt get picked up by a lot of teams to spare in big events. I remember seeing Matt in Yorkton, and I just remember
his first slam. Yeah,
he wasn't old enough to buy a beer.
Yeah.
He's kind of exposed to it at such a young age. And, he just kind of became a household name. Where what's kind of neat about Team McDonald is it's like the 4 of them came up together. Not that people don't know who Jacques Gauthier is, or Team McDonald for that matter, but now they're really, really going to get in that big, major kind of top tier scene of curling in Canada. I think a lot of the big teams would be making a big mistake if they didn't take them seriously going into this event. The best thing about them is they're fit, they're strong, they can shoot, and they're fearless. And that's not an opponent you want to go up against.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You're right. Like, as I said, Matt was playing with Steve Laycock and his veteran squad. I believe it was the Myers brothers were on the team at the time. Colton Flash had left. And it's for sure the way that they, the way that they've all come up together. Great experience for all of them, and not just one player like it kind of was for Matt back then. Elias Humanicki, Cam Olofsson, rounding out that lineup. Over on the women's side, we should talk a little bit about Team Sturmay. You had kind of brought up their consistency over the course of the week, and I would say that when they're playing their best, that is what you see out of them, and they haven't had their best game a lot over the last couple of years. Like, coming into the trials, I wasn't sure who to pick on either side. I felt like there was kind of 4 or 5 teams on both sides where it wouldn't have been shocking if they went on a run and won. And Sturmay was definitely in that conversation, but I don't know if I would have been as confident as you as to pick them going in. It just, they made the Scotties. They were a wild card at that home Scotties, like got a berth, like a direct berth. Like that's how high they were in the rankings. And then the last couple of years, it's been a bit of a struggle. They haven't had the consistent results they've wanted. I wouldn't say. They're down to 40th in the world. And even this year, like they've only made the quarterfinals in the Saville GP. Everything else, they didn't qualify. And I'm not picking on them. It hasn't gone the way they've hoped, I think, the last few years. And so it was kind of nice to see their best game. Obviously, that Scotties that they got the direct berth into here in Calgary, they played fantastic. Started 6-0, I believe, and made the playoffs there. So yeah, I think they're definitely a team, unlike McDonald, I would say Sturmay has experience playing in these Scotties and playing in these bigger tournaments. And they've been in a couple tier 1 slams themselves. And so, yeah, I think they're going to be an experienced squad. And I think the women's side of the trials is really wide open. Obviously we expect Homan and Anderson to be the favorites, but then after that, it's kind of that next group of 5 or 6 teams underneath them. As far as who's going to make the playoffs, we know it's a similar format to the pre-trials. First place gets a bye right to the finals. 2v3 play each other in the semis.
Yep.
Who that third team is going to be, I think, is up for debate. I think Sturmay is in the conversation to potentially be that third team. And then you get into a semifinal at an Olympic trials. Who knows what happens? And so, yeah, I think for them, great win. You talked about the best of 3, Robbie. You liked that. You liked that format.
I loved it. I think it just adds the opportunity for excitement as a fan. I think as a player too. I mean, I'm certainly a long time out of the high performance scene, but if I'm a player, you get to the finals. You're down to the final 2. How many times? Well, I mean, I don't want to say that officially, but so often we see a team do so well, they get to the finals. Shit just happens. They don't have their best game and boom, it's gone. At least it's a chance, in my opinion, feel free to disagree, but to really show, to really make a final decision on who the best team is that week. If a team, because we are talking about the Olympics, this is going to be the Canadian curling team at the Olympic Games. That's a big responsibility. I know the world is coming around. I know that, we're certainly not the powerhouse that we used to be, but to our fans, we're still Team Canada. It's the same in hockey. And there's a lot of people going to be watching that team. And I think it's, really important that we send our best team. And I think adding that extra layer just really helps in making sure that the top team that week who played the best at the trials or the pre-trials to get into the trials really deserved it. They earned it. They didn't just fluke one out. They didn't get hot, make it happen. They won 2 games before the other team could, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. I agree.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
you
go ahead.
Two Canadian guys doing a pod. You go.
No, PEI, man. But also as a fan, it's fun. And I was laughing because I was at a Bonspiel this weekend just at the Cornwall Curling Club's semifinalist, just with my with my buddies. And I always kind of ask questions on purpose just around the club to get kind of the general fans consensus. And a lot of people liked it. A lot of people said they liked the excitement of it. But then a couple people told me, well, it's kind of hard to follow. I said, what?
In what way?
In my head, all I could think about is like, anytime you hear a complaint about anything in curling, whether it's like music playing, light show, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's such a big problem, but it's like, find any other sport that doesn't have that. Like you watch the baseball right now, they're into the Blue Jays. It's a best of 7. No problem following that. But the best of 3 in curling, man, I don't know.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I personally like it. I think it adds a little bit of a layer to excitement, what just that kind of feeling of, is this going to be done tonight or is there going to be another game tomorrow? Yeah. It just adds something to it. I think it's good for the Canadian curling program or national team, whoever's going to be representing us at the Olympics. I just think it's a win-win. You?
Yeah, I like it too. I think you're right. I think we have seen the pressure of the trials catch up to teams, and we have had surprise winners in Canada multiple times, surprise finalists, surprise winners. Like there's almost no trials other than Martin Howard in 10 where you think like that went chalk, where you're like, yep, the clear top two teams made the trials final and the best team won.
Yep.
Like the best team has won the trials multiple times.
Yep.
But as far as like those were the clear top two, like right now we all think Homan and Einarson are going to be in the final. You know, the world rankings bear that out. The way things have gone the last few years all bears that out. But that's no guarantee, right? And even the last trials we saw, like Tracy Fleury making the finals, even Jennifer Jones wasn't playing great coming into the trials. Like, so it's always that there's like a team generally makes the trials finals that you don't expect. And you're right, the world is catching up. Curling Canada needed to find a way to ensure that there wasn't a fluke winner. And so, yeah, with the best of three, it's hard to argue. I thought it was funny that if we were the old format, McDonald and Sturmay also would have won. They both won. They both won game one of the best of three, but it did go to 3 games. But yeah, I think it's a win for sure. The only thing I wanted to say, and this is maybe I'm opening up a can of worms, but I'd be curious to hear what you think.
Bring it.
Do we even need the pre-trials anymore?
No, I don't.
Okay, because back in the day, the way you qualified for the pre-trials was almost exclusively winning a tournament. Mm-hmm. Or if someone who was already in the pre-trials had won said tournament, then second place in that tournament would get in or whatever. So you used to have pre-trials. Like winning a tournament is not easy. Making the playoffs at the Brier is not easy. So like I think of 2014, Jacobs and Morris both came through the pre-trials, and then they were the 2 teams that were in the finals of the trials, and then Jacobs went to the Olympics. So back when it was like you had to win the Canada Cup, or you had to win the Brier, you had to win the Scotties, there were good teams that fell through the cracks, and you needed the pre-trials to make sure you got your best teams into the trials. But now that it's all points based and it's all based on what have you done for me lately, it's kind of like, do we really need the pre-trials anymore? Like because it's both that like, you know, what I've kind of said, that like all the best teams are already making it into the trials. You don't need this fail safe, but it's also that like, again, it's just another 4 years down the road in curling. The top teams have gotten so good that it's hard to imagine a team coming through the pre-trials and winning. Like it feels like that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, again, I think McDonald and Sturmay are both going to be competitive, but I don't think either one of them have a very good chance of winning the trials. So do we even need the pre-trials? Is it important just to have that carrot for teams to you know, say to the next 8 teams or whatever, hey, you get to do something fun and you get to go play in an arena and you get a pre-trials jersey? Like, is that good enough? Or can we just get rid of the pre-trials? Am I insane in saying that?
No, well, I mean, if you are, then I am too, because I was just looking at my phone when you were talking about that, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I had sent a text just to a couple of friends who we chat curling in a chat group, and I think my wording was, why does this event still exist? Mm-hmm. And like I think you're right, and it's not to knock any teams that were in it or any younger teams coming up to try and get there, but it's just kind of one of those things where, you know, in 2025, if you want to win an Olympic gold medal realistically, you have to play all the time. Like you can't stop curling. It's like obviously a couple months in the summer to recoup, you know, build your muscles back up, recover from injuries, if you will. But you have to play all the time, and that's where the points come from. It's just, and even like going back to you talked about when you had to win a Canada Cup or win a Brier or win a Scotties or anything like that. Even before that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was just qualifying events that you would go to.
Correct.
And, you know, I think there was one in the East, one in the West, one Central. You know, I could be wrong on that. But I'm just thinking, like, if that was kind of the make or break for you and you go to some curling club wherever and the ice is straight, and, you know, it's a huge equalizer, anyone can win. It's so different now. Like the Olympics is so important, not just in terms of being fans and for the Canadian Olympic team in general, but for the sport as a whole. We've seen the numbers in terms of new fans, new eyeballs on the product, on the sport. It's so important, and Canada needs to be a leader in that. And not, as you mentioned, I agree 100%. Sturmay, and McDonald, both great teams. And I think, though, I don't think the pre-trials is their total motivation to get to the trials, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think teams, if they really want to win this whole thing, you need to play to get points. And that's the only way you can get points. In my opinion, the trials, I understand as well, even for Curling Canada from a marketing perspective or what have you, it's a big event. I'm sure it's a great revenue source for them. So I'm never going to say, scratch the trials. That's not what I'm saying at all. I love the trials as a fan. But I think the way to get there now with the number of very high quality teams we have in Canada is just straight up points. That's my opinion. Feel free to disagree.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And I just think that we have maybe thought of the pre-trials as a chance to get these teams on arena ice, like the lower ranked teams that get into the pre-trials. How often are they getting events on arena ice, or a young team like Mila Plett? Good to get them into a Canadian championship event, but it's also just like Mila Plett was in the points bet. She got experience on arena ice. McDonald's been in slams. Sturmay's been in slams and Scotties. Like the level at which these teams compete normally. And now with the addition of all these tier 2 events and stuff as well, like there's going to be lots of opportunities for those teams to play on arena ice. So yeah, I'd be curious to know if this is something Curling Canada is even thinking about, or if they do think it's still a carrot that they need to have for our Canadian teams. But I just think, like, you work for 4 years and you get to the pre-trials and you go 2-5 at the pre-trials. Do you go home and go, thank God I got to go to the pre-trials? Maybe you do. Maybe you do. I don't know. I've never been. I was 2 spots away from the pre-trials in 2018 or 2017. That was the closest I got. So maybe I'm not one to say because I haven't done it, but yeah, I'd be curious if that feels like a victory, or if you just go like, we spent a whole week there, we got our ass kicked, and we're still no closer to the Olympics than we were a week ago.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And to add to that, oh my God, do I really want to do this again for another 4 years?
Yeah, totally.
Like realistically, if you're, for younger teams who are looking to have families, maybe in the 8th year of their undergrad, because they can only take one course per semester. There's a lot of things that kind of tie into that. But then, as I said, if you want to get in those trials, you got to play. And with that comes sacrifices. So
yeah,
I'm with you, John. I agree 100%. And truth be told, I really questioned that a lot. But one thing I will say, just positive, I really did enjoy watching it. It was
for sure. I mean, I always like last gasp curling. Like, who doesn't like that, right? I think it's, especially the finals, when you're, the round robin, whatever, can be a bit of a slog where you're getting a team that, is not going to win and whatever. But when you get to the finals, that's interesting and that's fun to watch. But yeah, I don't know. I'll be curious to see if Team Canada changes it up. And Curling Canada, but speaking of changing it up, I want to talk about the PanCon a little bit. It was the last one ever, but feels like we can't talk about the PanCon this year without talking about World Curling's rule change announcement that dropped last week as we record this. They have announced that the PanCon gone. This is the last running of the PanCon. The European Championships are still going to run, but they're not going to be a World Championship qualifying event. They're just going to run on their own at the start of the curling season. And then the Worlds are shifting to a promotion relegation system. There's going to be a World A Championship, a World B Championship, and a World C Championship. World A's, or what we would currently call the World Championships, are expanding to 18 teams from 13, I believe is the current number of 14. That's expanding to 18. And then moving forward, it will be the bottom 4 teams at the World A's dropping down to the World B's, and the top 4 teams in the World B's move up to the World A's. And that's going to be how they decide who gets into the World Championships. There's not going to be all these pre-qualifier events like the Euros, like the PanCons. Robbie, I'll throw it to you. Your initial thoughts when you saw that come down from World Curling last week.
I really like it. I think it's going to be fun. I think it will add a level of, excuse me, of excitement to the World Championships. I think it'll engage a lot more fans towards the end of the round robin, where your clear kind of playoff picture starting to shape up. But then you also know, and this is coming from PEI at the Briar in 2015-16.
As a man who has been through relegation.
Hey, I got PEI out and it put us right back in.
That's my guy.
But honestly, like, I personally, I obviously couldn't stand relegation at the time, but maybe as a fan, I see it as a different way. I think it will engage fans. I'll certainly be more interested if, who knows, if someone goes and has a bad week, like who could be anyone, could be Canada, could be US, could be whoever, Sweden. And if they're just not kind of getting their shit together, and that it's getting later and later in the week, and they're kind of sitting like fifth from the bottom, and they have a tough game ahead, I'm going to tune into that game. You're going to see the finals, or the finals on the weekend. You're going to see that championship game, the semifinals, page playoff, whatever it is, all that stuff. But if I know that, like, hypothetically, let's say Schwaller or Odin is on the bubble of losing their spot at the Worlds, I'm really going to pay attention and follow. Yeah. I think it creates some excitement in that way. And I think it's great to go from 13 to 18. It gives a lot more teams. How many times have we seen, a team show up at a slam that we haven't seen, and boom, they shoot the lights out? Wang from China, who we're going to talk about in a sec, we saw them in London. They were lights out, like a great curling team. And I think that's going to happen now. We're going to see a lot of teams who perhaps we don't think about on the world stage. They're going to have a great week. And then someone who you'd never expect to see fall back into the B is going to move down. So it's going to be fun to follow. I think it's fun for the fans. And I think it just adds that little extra layer for those players at the end of the week who are not in the playoff picture. Well, you got to kind of keep going.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, we all kind of knew this from the beginning. We can call it what it is. The PanCon was a complete failure. I mean, I get the idea of we're trying to bring up these teams underneath your New Zealands and your Puerto Ricos and your Hong Kongs, and like I get all of that. But the same teams were qualifying all the time. So and Bo had admitted that himself when he was talking about this. I listened to an interview with him, and he was saying, like, we wanted to give these teams a chance to get into the Worlds, but the reality is they weren't getting into the Worlds. And if you never held the PanCon, the same teams were going to be going to the Worlds year after year. So I think what's cool about it is, instead of the event being the PanCon that like 1 year was held in a curling club, you're not getting a true world field. You're just playing the teams that are, Asia and North America, and some others, but like the teams that were not in your zone. Now if you are a team that's like on that bubble, like, you have a chance to get into the Worlds, and that feels like a more meaningful experience than whatever the Pan-Continental was. Like, I don't think the PanCon was making teams better. I don't think it was making New Zealand better. I don't think it was helping Brad Jacobs or Rachel Homan get better, or John Schuster or whoever, you know. So I just, to me, they had to do something about the PanCon. I like this move. I think, as you said, Robbie, just increases the number of teams that get into the Worlds, which I think is great for everybody. And we do have some non-traditional curling nations starting to make some noise. Philippines is a great example. That's a team that's really starting to make some noise on the world scene. They have a chance to qualify for the Olympics coming up in December. So what I kind of think is, now you might get more media attention. It's one thing to say to a sports outlet in the Philippines, hey, our team is going to the Pan-Continental Curling Championships. And they go, what the hell is that? Why would I write a story about that? That's way different than saying, hey, the Philippines team is going to the World Championships.
Yep.
Then they go, oh, okay, I'll write about that. That's interesting to me. So I like that. I also feel, and maybe this is just, we're all talking about being on our phones too much and our attention spans eroding, but part of the move was to 18 is to go to the Briar and Scotties format, which is 2 pools of 9 that shortens the event by like 3 days.
Yep.
And I'll say this. I mean, I know we come from a world where the Brier and Scotties used to be, you play every team once and it was 12 round robin games or 11 round robin games or whatever. The Worlds the last few years have felt so long to me. Like like last year you're following, especially when it's over, like when the women's was in Korea. So the time zones are all janked and you just like Rachel Homan plays a game and they win and you're like, oh, cool. They must be into the semifinals. And it's like, no, that was just round robin game 9 or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, we're still in the round robin. Like it just felt like it took forever. So I know there's been some mixed opinions about the Brier and Scotties format. And I'm not even sure it's like the greatest format in the world, but the idea that the Worlds is 3 days shorter, I'm actually kind of loving.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And when they changed the format of the Brier, I was like, oh man, come on.
Yeah,
but now look, actually, like what you just said really kind of stuck with me and kind of rang a bell is I just kind of thought to myself, if I did go back and I did have to sit through 12 round robin, that's a long week. And I think it's really long. I agree. And even for the players too, like my goodness. Yeah.
Well, you think of Homan and teams from here, like had to go to Korea. You go like 4 days before it even starts to get acclimated to the time zone. And so you're gone for 2.5 weeks almost. Like it's just, it was crazy.
Yeah. And one comment that kind of stuck with me too, what you said is, I don't think going to the PanCons makes anybody better. That was the way you worded it. And what popped into my head was, now in no way am I trying to paraphrase Team Jacobs here, but all I thought was in some ways it can almost hurt teams like Team Jacobs. They couldn't play the slam.
Yeah.
They had to go to the PanCon.
Yeah, same with Schuster, same with Shu. Like, yeah.
Right. Who do you think they'd rather play against? The best in the world or sorry, not even want to play against, but what's more beneficial for them as a curling team? Of course, you want to be at a slam playing the best teams in the world. So I agree. I think I like the new format. The PanCon, it was a cool try, but swing and a miss for me.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? Good on them for recognizing that. It's okay to try. I think that's fine. And I think we are both sort of acknowledging like the idea, like the philosophy behind the idea was good. Yeah. But just in execution, it never really came off. And they also, they just couldn't find anywhere to host it. It ended up being in Canada 3 of the 4 times it was hosted. And then the Northern US, the other time, like it just, like the whole Kelowna Curling Club fiasco, it was supposed to be in Japan and then that didn't work. And then last minute they had to put it in a curling club. And yeah, so it just, I agree completely. However, the last ever, or at least the last ever for now, Pan-Continental Championships happened this week. We'll talk about it very quickly because we do have a couple slams to talk about.
Yep.
But Brad Jacobs goes undefeated through the field, wins it for Canada. And then on the women's side, Rachel Homan takes a few more losses than we're used to seeing out of her, including losing the final to Wang Rui of China.
Yeah, we talked about Wang Rui moments ago. Like what a great team they are. And in London, they were extremely solid. I'm not surprised to see them on the podium. Obviously, it's an upset to beat Homan at this stage. But you look at Homan, they got off the ice in Nisku. They won the event, went to the airport, flew to the US for the PanCons, went right on the ice. Like they've basically been curling for 2 weeks straight. And they're extremely conditioned, extremely fit, extremely healthy, extremely strong athletes. But 2 weeks straight, like that's a lot. And the only thing to kind of break that up is a flight. You're going to run out of gas. Doesn't matter kind of who you are. But congratulations to Team Wang. I think that team's really fun to watch. I think they're going to be a very, very, very big dark horse at the Olympic Games or at any World Championships that we see them in. And it's funny, they just kind of came on the scene here not too long ago, like in the kind of worldwide kind of I don't mean A-list, but kind of that big spectacle of teams, and they certainly belong. And that's a big win for them. So congratulations. And I think it's funny too, and because you're just going to hear comments like, is Homan slipping? Is Homan slipping? No, they just won a slam, flew right to the States, and then lost the final of the PanCons.
Yes. Well, and not only that, but it was their second slam in a row that they won. So yeah, no, I agree. It's just you have brought this up before on this podcast. And I've seen other people talk about it too. It's like when you losing a game is a story, then that, you're a pretty good team. And I just think for me, so Rachel Homan, as you said, Robbie, flies directly to the PanCon, loses her first game 11-5 to Satsuki Fujisawa. Very easy to chalk that up to all the things that happened before. Fujisawa was also in Nisku, but their week ended early, so they were able to get to Minnesota a little quicker and had a little more time to prepare. And then they, this was always something that got told to me when I was a kid, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but in curling, you're not really a great team until you can beat a great team twice in an event. And Wong not only beat Homan in the final, but also beat them in the round robin. So taking 2 wins off of Rachel in the same tournament, I don't think there's going to be too many teams that are going to do that. I don't know if any team has even ever done that against Rachel in this like 2-year sort of imperial run that she's on. They might be the first team to beat Rachel twice in the same event. So so as you said, they're really coming on strong, really great team. Not a lot bothers them. Wong herself seems just so calm, unflappable, like the way they play. And as you said, with the Olympics on the horizon, it's going to be interesting to see how they do. And then your thoughts, just very quickly. Brad Jacobs, as you said, had to forego the slam in Nisku, so they were maybe coming into the PanCon a little bit fresher. But they run the table 9-0 on their way to the title.
Not surprised. That team, to me, all year has just looked so solid. And the end of last year as well, they really had a good kind of season and a half, if you will. It seemed like the last half of last year, and then so far this year, they're dialed in. They're just a strong team. They communicate so well. They're so precise. Paul Webster's done a great job. You can just tell. We had him on last year, and he talked about some of the things he worked with them in terms of, try to create the vision of what they want the team to look like, how they communicate, how they work as a unit. And he just seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe this wasn't his doing, but it sure looks like they're just a team that everyone knows their role and they do it to the absolute best of their ability. They're going to be very, very, very tough at the trials. Yes. But a big shout out to Shusty for making the finals. That's big for them, especially on home soil. It's always good for the game, especially south of the border when the hometown team makes the final. And in a curling state like Minnesota, it's certainly probably, if not the most popular, one of the most popular, curling states down there. So I think it was good for the game. Fun to see them, but no surprise that Jacobs won. Yeah,
I mean, I think, we're setting up for what's going to be really fun trials. We know the U.S. trials are actually coming up in just 2 weeks, almost exactly to the day as we're recording this episode. And then, of course, we have the Canadian trials coming up. And I think it's very cool that we're seeing top teams in both of those playing very well. So as you said, Shusty makes the final at the PanCon. Danny Casper wins the Sault Ste. Marie event, the Henderson Medal Fall Classic. And that's basically a slam level event. They beat Joel Retornaz in the final there. And that was without Danny Casper because he was the 5th for John Schuster at the PanCon. Yep. So they brought in Rich Ruinin, veteran of the game, to come in and play with their team. And so you've got Casper. He's playing phenomenally. He's actually the top ranked U.S. team as of this recording. You've got John Schuster, all of his experience, his Olympic experience, his trials experience. We've seen Corey Dropkin in a couple slams. They're playing not maybe their best curling, but we know they're going to be a factor at the trials. Yep. And then on the Canadian side, you've got Matt Dunstone. He wins 2 big events, wins the AMJ Masters, wins the PointsBet Invitational, makes the final in Nisku. And then Brad Jacobs also starting great. They make the semifinal in London. They win the PanCon. It's just great in a trials year when you're seeing the teams you're maybe expecting to be in and around the finals picture playing so well going into the trials. It's just very exciting as a fan, I'd say.
Well, I think even you and I commentating at the slams, we've talked about it on air so many times. Every game is just intense. These teams, it's business. What's that? It's business time.
It is.
It really is business time. And it's fun to see. Curling is great because of the camaraderie. I'm not trying to bring that away, but sometimes when you can just turn that intensity up, even on like a Wednesday night, it's really fun to watch. And the teams are also showing how good they really are. Going back to Casper, I called that in Charlottetown. I saw them in the Tier 2 at the Charlottetown Slam last year. And then, of course, this year winning the Tier 2.
Yeah.
And they're a great team. They have such a bright future and they're fearless. I don't know if how many times you've talked to Danny personally, John, but he's just a cool cat. He's not going to be intimidated and he's certainly not scared. And I think he's going to be a serious contender at those trials.
I agree. I mean, I talked to Danny on this very podcast. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. He's a real character. Also talked about some of his health struggles. Like he's got a pretty serious medical condition that he's dealing with and managing while being this good. So yeah, if you haven't checked out that interview, it's a great one. You should go back and listen to it. But speaking of the slams, Robbie, we do have to put a bow on Nisku. We were back in the Silent Ice Center. And as I said off the top of the show, the 2 world number ones back on top. Bruce Mouat winning on the men's side, Rachel Homan winning on the women's side, Mouat beating Dunstone in the final. And it was almost a perfect straight across final. Matt Dunstone, world number 3, making the final. And then it was a classic world number 1 versus world number 2 battle on the women's side, Homan and Tirinzoni. Tell me about your impressions of their win and just Nisku in general.
Well, first of all, Bruce Mouat is back. Not that he ever really went anywhere.
He's back, baby.
He came back in Broom.
Similar to Homan. Oh, you only made the semifinals in London. Have you fallen off?
Has-beens.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but some of the shots they're making out there, John, it's just, I think
that draw in the first end of the final was just nasty. Insane.
Yeah, disgusting was the word, I think.
Disgusting was the word I used on the broadcast, yes.
Yeah, but you're bang on. Like, that was just foolish. Even this weekend, I said I was playing, it was just with my mixed team from last year, and they were just talking about Team Mouat and how precise they were, but it was that shot kind of coming through that port. It's just mind-blowing. Like, there was no room to get through there. And they're just so calm, cool, and collected, but so confident at the same time. And not surprised. Matt Dunstone, too. You can't say that he didn't play well. Bruce Mouat was just lights out that day. Dunstone is also a team that it's almost like the casual fans are just saying, oh, he's hot right now. His flame will dim a little bit. Did he peak too early? And for those who can't see, I'm using my fingers as fake quotation marks. No, that's a good team. That is a solid team. I'm not surprised that it was those 2 in the finals. Nonetheless, I'm sure Matt would like to have a couple back. But I don't really see anyone beating Mouat that day.
No, I mean, it's sort of when you see Bruce make that shot for 2 in the first, I think it would be very hard. And I'm not saying Matt did this at all, but I'm just putting myself in Matt's shoes. I think it would be very hard to think, to not think like, oh, we lost.
Yeah.
We just lost. We just lost on that shot. Yeah, it's only 2-0. We're going into the second end with the hammer, but I would feel like, oh no. Okay. Or we're in for a long one. So no, I agree with you. And speaking of a long one, maybe very poetic, but Alina Petz, as everybody knows, very funny, also very cool customer. Was interviewed by our own Devin Haru right before the final. And Devin kind of asked what the game plan was against Rachel. You've played Rachel so many times. Alina says, well, it's like every other time we play Rachel. If we don't play well, they're going to kick our ass.
Yeah.
And then roughly 15 minutes later, gave up a steal of 4 in the first end. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I was on the call for that one. And it's always hard to kind of come up with storylines. But you know what? In fairness to Team Tirinzoni, they didn't give up. Couple ends. I think they came back. I think they got forced, but then they ended up stealing one. Maybe forced again. Like they were kind of showing signs of making a game of it, which is kind of unheard of when you're down 4, like you said, against Team Homan. But again, Rachel Homan just went into cruise control. You can't give up a 4-ender no matter what end it is and beat that team. And not surprised. If they're not your pick going into any event, then that's on you because they're just the best team in the world right now. And
no, it's so true. It's so hard. It really is so hard to even to say anything else. Like you just like every time we get going into a slam, I ask you for your predictions and I say, what are you thinking? And give me a dark horse. And if you don't say, well, I think Rachel Homan's got a good shot at the final. I mean, she's made, 7 finals in a row now. So you just kind of have to go, yeah, it's boring to pick world number 1, but also what do you want from me? This just is what it is at this point. Yeah, I totally agree. Now, also, Robbie, we had a unique event at the Grand Slam of curling in Nisku, the first ever U25 and U15, the so-called junior Grand Slam events being played at the Beaumont Curling Club, but we saw the U15 and U25 finals on the ice in Nisku. Your thoughts on how that event played out over
Well,
the
I
course
called
of the week?
I called the U25 men's final, and it was a good game. Jordon McNamara, he had Sam Steep skipping the team. They were solid. They got off to a really good start, and then the wheels sort of fell off. It was Team Maeda from Japan they were playing against.
Yeah.
And what a team they are. They have, I know I sound like like an old crusty curling fan and like a generic line, but they have every shot in the book in their bag. They really do. They're so good with their finesse. They didn't miss on draws. And what a sweeping team. Just power. Like I've never Kirikawa, I think the second stone. And man, like we were just talking, I think it was Don McEwen and I in between like commercial breaks, if you will, just saying what a sweeper. And like I don't think they're obviously not an old team if they're U25. That's the first time I've ever seen them in person. And once they kind of I think they gave up a steal or two in the first end, didn't look very sharp, but they kind of regrouped. And once they regrouped, they were head and shoulders the top team in that final. So congratulations to them. And if you're going to travel to Edmonton from Japan, you want to win. That's a long.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting too, right, Robbie? Because I think a lot of the great sweepers that we see on tour now, a lot of them, and this is not all of them, obviously we have some young teams that are playing in the slams, but some of the older teams, like on some level, they had to teach themselves how to sweep like mid-career. Yep. Broomgate kind of opened up a lot of ideas about how we sweep, and older curlers had to make adjustments when all of that stuff happened. And what we're seeing now, and you see it with the younger teams like Team Schwaller, Team McDonald, and then Team Maeda, to your point, they've kind of grew up in a curling environment where they started knowing how to sweep. There was no sort of like mid-career pivot. Like we kind of, I mean, again, we don't know everything about sweeping, but I think we know more than we've ever known before. And they're kind of learning this right from the beginning. So you see these young teams come up, and obviously they're very fit. They're getting into their athletic primes. So they're very strong, but then they also have a sweeping technique that they have pretty much started with, as opposed to, I kind of had to learn how to make the rock dance with carving or whatever. So yeah, definitely interesting. I just thought, the whole U25, U15 event was great. Team Grey Withers winning on the women's side and then losing in the parking lot to me in a running race. Thank you so much. Held it down for the 40-year-old men. Let this be a lesson to 25-year-old women everywhere. We are not washed. We still have things to contribute to society. Looking forward to the rematch. They've challenged me to a rematch, Robbie. I don't know why. I guess they want to get embarrassed again, but
can I MC that?
Yes, you definitely can. Yeah. We'll figure. I don't know when that's going to happen. I think they'll have a very good chance of making it into the tier 2 in Saskatoon. They've moved up into like the top 25 in the world rankings with their win there in Nisku. So possible we'll see it in Saskatoon, but if not, at some point this year, we will make it happen, definitely. But yeah, just a great event. I think one that universally curling fans really enjoyed getting to see, the curlers all to a person. Like I went down to the Beaumont Curling Club to watch some of the curling, talk to some of the parents. They just really loved it. I know, Anna Hasselborg had a great like Instagram story where she said like 14-year-old me is so jealous of these 15-year-olds now that are getting this opportunity to play on arena ice. Like you and I couldn't have even dreamed about something like that. So definitely seems like an event that will happen next year, almost certainly. And was one that was really, really great for the sport. Okay, we now have our first ever event in the U.S. coming up next week. It is the KIOTI GSOC Tahoe. We're heading to Lake Tahoe, Nevada for a week of curling, and a couple interesting storylines here, Robbie. Obviously, we've spoke at length about Jared Allen being involved in the field, but we have now learned, because of the conflict with the U.S. Olympic trials, they are the only American team in the field. And some of those American teams having to decline the invites. Brad Gushue also declined his invite to Tahoe. it's opened the door for some new teams to kind of come in on both sides of the ledger. So for the men, we've obviously got Jared Allen's team, which we learned is going to be skipped by Wayne Madaw. Brought him out of retirement to play with John Morris and Jason Smith and Jared. Jordan McDonald getting into his first slam of the year. We're going to see Kyle Waddle again. We saw them in Nisku. They were great. They made a quarterfinal there in Nisku. Team Shu back in the picture for China. And then on the women's side, we're seeing a couple new / familiar faces. Akue Kitazawa, who was in a few slams last year. She's in. Rebecca Morrison, who has been in a couple slams before. She's in. Wong Rue is back in. Caitlin Laws did just enough to keep her spot. And we're going to see the first time in a slam Bobae Kong, the South Korean junior prodigy, just won the World Juniors last year. We're going to see her in the field. Team Kim actually turned down the Tahoe event, so we're not going to see 4 South Korean teams in the event, but we do have Gim, Ha, Kong, a lot of new blood in the Tahoe fields. What are you excited about, other than just the fact that we're going to be in Tahoe next week?
Yeah, I was kind of researching that trip yesterday and a little bit over the weekend, and I've heard of Tahoe and I've heard of, then I kind of went on the websites, looked at the tourism and all that things. And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited to go there just to see it. But no, it'll be a great week of curling. I think Kong is the team that pops out at me. I've heard of them, so many times. You mentioned it after they won the World Juniors, and any story like that, you see a team getting their first break under the bright lights against the top teams. It's going to be a big test for them. But we talked about curling in Korea how many times now, John? And it's just really on the up and up. There's a lot of great teams, as you mentioned, 3 of them in this event alone. And it's going to be fun to watch them. But I think you can sit here and say what you want. It's always Rachel Homan's to lose. Yeah. And they'll have, a few days at least under their belt now to take a break and kind of regroup after the big stretch. I think they're going to be tough, but it's going to be some great curling on the men's side. Obviously, Dunstone, I think, is going to be feisty to get back. They'll have their hands full, but I know you're going to ask me for a prediction in a little bit, so I don't want to talk too much. But right now, I think Mouat, just if we can base anything off that performance we've seen in that Nisku final, the Co-op Tour Challenge, Mouat's just pretty much unstoppable right now unless someone really steps up. Now, Brad Jacobs might have something to say about that as well.
Yes, Jacobs back in the field for this slam. They're in a pool with Ross White, Mark Muskatovitz, and Team Shu. But we also have,
tough pool.
Tough pool for sure. Welcome back.
Yeah.
It's also, you talk about Bruce Mouat. I'm loving the fact that Jared Allen is in their pool. I think seeing Bruce Mouat play against those guys, couple retired veterans of the game, and the Pro Football Hall of Famer Jared Allen, that's going to be a fun one that I have circled on my calendar for sure. But yeah, I just think it's interesting. I think we get so used to the slams looking very similar. Like usually if we have a new team coming in, it's like it's like one team drops out, another team comes in and takes their place. So I'm curious on both sides where we kind of have 3 or 4 teams we don't see all the time getting into these slams. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they make their mark on the slams in Tahoe, and just what that looks like for them long term. I mean, as you and I both know, you have a good result at a slam, that usually means you're going to get into another slam. So a lot on the line for those teams. It'll be also the last major event before the Canadian Olympic trials. I do think there will be some teams that will play a little bit on the World Curling Tour in the next couple weeks as they prepare for the trials at the end of November. But for some of these teams, this could be their last event, or at least their last major event. So that'll be curious to see how they play. Yeah, there's just there's lots to look forward to, lots of great storylines in this slam in Tahoe. Very excited for it. Tickets are still available, by the way, gsoctickets.com. I believe there's some discounts being offered for families for some single game packages. So check that out. But yes, Robbie, it wouldn't be the same ending an episode of Broom Brothers if I didn't ask you for your predictions and maybe a dark horse or two. So give me your predictions on both sides, men's and women's, for the GSOC in Tahoe.
All right, you ready for this?
I'm ready, baby. I'm strapped in.
I'm going to start on the women's side.
Okay.
Now, again, I said this last time. Put your seatbelt on. Don't jump out of your chair when I say this.
Okay.
But in the final, my first team I'm going to select, Rachel Homan.
Oh my God. Really? What?
That's a knee slapper. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But here's their
7
opponent.
in a row. 7 in a row.
It's not Tirinzoni this time. I'm going to take Hasselberg.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. I kind of got to see a few of their games in Nisku, and they look like they're just getting sharp. I think they got to the semifinals in Nisku.
Yeah, they lost to Rachel in a shootout.
Right,
exactly. And by like a centimeter. So Rachel pinned hers.
Yep.
They went first. Anna had to pin it back, and it came up about 1 centimeter short of the pin. It was very dramatic. I know there are detractors of the shootout, and we do not have time to get into it right now, but I will say the semifinal shootout, I was on the call for that game. I was on the edge of my seat. Loved it. So yeah, I like the Hasselborg pick for sure.
Dark horse, taking Kong from Korea.
Love it. I agree. They've been very good. They actually, they came third at the Korean Olympic trials. They went further than Eunjung Kim at those trials. They were very good in the U25 event as well. Lost the semifinal there, but yeah, they're going to be a team that we're going to be saying their name for years and years to come. Very excited for them. Okay, hit me with the men's side.
All right. Now this might also shock you, but I'm going to take in the final Bruce Mouat. Once again playing Ross White.
Okay. Going for an all Scottish final, because Ross White did not have a great week in Nisku 1-3.
I know, but I drove Robin Bride into the arena one night. And I said, you were one of my predictions to be in the final here in Nisku, and what happened? He said, don't worry about it. We'll be back. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to take you again then, Robin. No, I just think that team is so solid, and they're looking good. So those are my 2 picks, all Scottish final. Okay. And the dark horse, Wayne friggin' Mouat. I'm sorry. I know it's 2025, but like if I see Wayne Mouat's name on a draw, I'm not betting against him. So sorry, Wayne.
I love
just
it.
Be Wayne, man.
I love it. If I say their over under on wins is 0.5, are you taking the over?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you think they're going to win a game?
Absolutely. Wayne, man, he's my guy. I got
okay.
My favorite roller when I was little.
I love it. Well, yeah, we are definitely looking forward to Tahoe. Hope you are as well. Of course, if you can't make it to Tahoe, all the games will be available on Rock Channel. We're also going to be maybe, and this is the first time I've talked about this, but we may be experimenting with some games on Twitch as well. In Tahoe, I'm going to be hosting a few games on Twitch, so we'll have an interactive chat with the fans. I'm going to get some players in the booth with me for that, for maybe a little bit more of a casual commentary, interact with the fans, watch some games. So keep your eyes out for my socials, Grand Slam socials. We'll have more details on that, but a couple games in Tahoe we are going to run on Twitch. Everything else will be on the Rock Channel, and the Twitch games will be on Rock Channel too, so don't worry about that. rockchannel.com. Very excited for all of that, and of course, if you can join us in person, we'd love to see you there. GSOCtickets.com. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to the show. We do appreciate it. If you want to see a video of this show, if you want to see the couch pillows I left in the background of this entire broadcast, because we had a party here this weekend and we needed to separate our sectional couch, and I didn't move the pillows before recording, you can see that on YouTube. All of our episodes are on YouTube, and we're on every socials as the Broom Brothers. So give us a follow, like, subscribe, do all that great stuff. But thank you for listening. We'll probably take a break next week when we're in Tahoe, and then we will be back the week after that with more interviews with players, chatting between me and Robbie. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.